if you roll over, and of course also the all-wheel drive, the second safety feature. So this is the target group of the 911 Targa, and we are looking forward now to more driving.
Now that's volume at 14. Let's get some volume.
Alright, so setting off here in the 2023 Integra. So the first thing you notice about this, well, you have a really nice low seat, a lot to take in. I guess the first thing when you first sit down in here is the visibility in the ID.4, which is really interesting. So it's overall really good. You know, you have a nice large windshield. It's really slanted a lot, so you have a lot of dashboard in front of you. So it kind of feels almost like minivan-like to me, just looking forward, because this dashboard is just so long and the windshield has such an angle to it. It's kind of interesting. The A-pillar is a little bit thick towards the base, and so depending on the angle of intersections and stuff, and just the way the roads are set up, there was one time where that actually was kind of getting in the way. But overall, I mean, you have the mirror off onto the door, and you do have that little A-pillar window, so hopefully it won't be too bad most of the time. I'll continue to check for that as I'm driving this around for the week. But really nice large side windows. View out of the back is also pretty good. The window's a little bit small, but not too bad. And so, as far as visibility goes, it's really easy to see around. You do have a backup camera here, but you don't have a 360 camera, which is kind of surprising, because even like a premium trim of a Mustang Mach-E gives you a 360 camera. You don't have anything like that here in this. But other things to note, of course, it's electric, so you're going to notice that right off the bat, where it's nice and quiet, especially above 20 miles per hour. Below 20 miles per hour, pretty cool. It makes these humming sounds, which is of course to alert pedestrians and stuff like that, so that people see you coming and aren't too surprised. But that's really the only noise it makes, and I think it's a really cool kind of futuristic noise, so I do like that. It's mostly consistent, but it's not perfect. There is also this B mode, which Volkswagen claims gives you one pedal driving, but it's not enough aggression with the regenerative braking, so it doesn't actually come to a stop in a reasonable amount of time, at least. So you're still going to have to use a brake pedal even with that B mode on, but that will stop the car from like coasting, things like that, versus in drive it'll inch up and coast and all that, just like a normal automatic transmission gasoline powered vehicle. So they wanted to keep it familiar for people. Again, they're trying to convert people that are coming from gas engine vehicles more so, I think, than trying to make electric car fans happy. But at least you have the B mode there for a little bit of regen, at least, because whenever you're just in drive, it almost feels like you're wasting energy because it's not recapturing any of that energy, really. But yeah, so throttle response, though, is very nice and immediate. Even here in the eco mode, it responds very quickly, and you have the typical electric response where it's immediate and you get instant jolts of power. But it's nicely smoothed over, so it's not really violent or anything like some of the others. And let's turn down onto this back road here and see how it does. Here we go. All right, pretty instant jolt. Kind of pushes you back in your seat a good bit. And gets up and moves really nicely, but all you're hearing is wind noise and how it increases. That's all you hear. If you listen really, really closely, you might be able to hear a tiny bit of an electric motor, but it's basically totally silent. So it's kind of wild. You actually don't really hear much tire noise either, so they did a really good job of making this thing feel really nice and quiet, and it gives a really luxurious feeling. But anyway, as far as the power goes, so this first edition, and currently here in July of 2021, all versions of the ID.4 are rear-wheel drive only. An all-wheel drive version is coming that'll have dual motors and more power, but this one is just rear-wheel drive, a rear motor, does 201 horsepower, 229 pound-feet of torque, and that gives it about a 7.6 seconds 0 to 60 time. So I'd say it feels maybe a little bit quicker than that. I don't know if it feels that slow, but it's very punchy still whenever you tip in, especially here in sport mode. It really, wants to take off and go pretty quickly. For someone who is used to electric vehicles, I've tested a few of them here now. It's about what you're expecting, but it's not going to be as impressive as basically most of the other newer EVs out there these days that have a lot more punch up. Even a base Mustang Mach-E is a good bit faster than this. But anyway, other things here. Again, now we're on a pretty rough road. This road usually generates a lot of road noise in most of my other reviews and other vehicles. And in this, I mean, you hear it a little bit, but it is a good bit quieter than what you're going to get in most other vehicles. You know, not only in this segment, but in most segments. It's really pretty impressive, especially on these 20-inch wheels, that not only is it so quiet on these huge 20-inch wheels, but it's also so smooth and soft for the ride. I mean, I've already hit a few potholes already, and it just really glides over them. It is very, almost luxurious, I have to say, with the ride here. But anyway, coming up some corners here, and let's see how the ID.4 handles them. This thing weighs almost 4,700 pounds, 4,698. So here we go, let's see. Okay, so it's not bad. Obviously, you know, you're going to have a very low center of gravity because you have all those batteries in the floor, and so that's going to, you know, help this to not feel like it's top heavy or anything. Now they do, you know, have the suspension tuned to be a little bit on the softer side since this is just a family crossover, nothing that's supposed to be sporty. But it's, honestly, it feels pretty good. I'd say that, yeah, it's a nice blend of, I'd say it probably handles better than most family crossovers. I could probably give it that. It feels flatter than a RAV4 or a CRV or something like that for sure. And yes, it's maybe 1,000 pounds or so heavier than those vehicles. I don't think you really feel 1,000 pounds heavier. Maybe you feel 200 or 300 pounds of extra weight, at least from my, you know, driver's seat impressions here. But it doesn't feel like you're piloting something that, you know, weighs as much as a Hummer or something. You know, I mean, it doesn't feel that heavy. So, I mean, it feels pretty good. I gotta say too, the steering has a pretty nice feel to it. You know, I mean, it's just the weighting is nice. Obviously, it's pretty numb and dead. You don't really feel much through the wheel, but you know, it feels precise, and I do like. I think it's kind of a pretty happy medium as far as the steering weight here. I believe it is a little bit heavier in sport mode, but it's mostly just sharpening up that throttle response there in that sport mode. But here's some potholes. And I was going a little bit slower because I had some traffic in front of me. But I mean, really, it's impressive how much this thing soaks them up. And also, you know, this is rear-wheel drive. So, you know, if you're an enthusiast, you might be like, oh man, it's going to start feeling like it wants to slide around or something like that, like a rear-wheel drive sports car would. And they have everything dialed in with the stability control and stuff that, you know, even whenever I tried to push it coming out of that one corner earlier, it was totally planned. It did not have any kind of rear-wheel drive tendencies or anything. I think, you know, if they're not trying to make it feel sporty with the rear-wheel drive thing, they just, it's just the cheaper one, you know, it's two-wheel drive and just so happens to be in the rear. So I think they try to tune out, you know, any kind of you know, sporty handling characteristics as far as that rear motor, but it does. I mean, I'm totally happy with the power. I think for the average person, especially someone coming out of a gas vehicle, you hop into this, you're going to be like, wow, this thing feels like a rocket ship because you have that instant response of that power, and that's going to feel, you know, pretty exciting, especially, you know, if you haven't experienced something like a crazy Tesla or even the Mustang Mach-E or something like that, which does give you a good bit more performance.
So when Volkswagen tells you that this new car launch is the most important launch since the new Beetle, you better believe that my expectations are going to be quite high for this all-new 2021 ID.4. Now, I first had an opportunity to drive this car late last year. I was at the global or the US unveiling of the car in New York right around October of last year. And back then, I really only drove the car for a short distance around Herndon, Virginia. Now that I have the car for a couple days, I will say that the initial impressions I had back then are staying true today. This is one impressive driving electric SUV that will change a lot of people's perception of VW as a brand. Now, the car I'm driving is the first edition rear-wheel drive single motor vehicle. Volkswagen only offers it with one battery pack for now. It's 77 kilowatt hours. It's usable. And with 201 horsepower and 229 pound-feet of torque, that is pretty similar to something like a Volkswagen GTI. And when you put your foot down, if you guys have never driven an electric car, this is going to be very impressive. VW says you'll get to 60 in around 7.7 seconds for this rear drive model. There is a dual motor all-wheel drive version coming that will give you an extra 100 horsepower, and it should improve the 0 to 60 time to around 5.8 seconds. Now, there are different drive modes for this vehicle. There's Eco, Comfort, Sport, and then a custom mode. I have it in sport mode right now, which should, you know, allow the vehicle to get maximum acceleration. Feels a little sluggish when you start getting above 40 miles an hour. It really starts to feel sluggish, but 7.7 seconds sounds about right. It is Because I've driven so many EVs, this feels a little bit sluggish. I'll be honest there, it feels sluggish. Something like the Kia Niro EV, the Hyundai Kona Electric, even the Chevrolet Bolt is quicker than this vehicle. But again, VW has a solution with the extra motor that's coming at the front axle later this summer, which should, improve the 0 to 60 to under 6 seconds. That is way more competitive. But remember, this car is not supposed to be a competitor to like something like a Tesla or even a Ford Mach-E. The Mach-E will smoke this car all day long. VW instead says if you guys are looking to spend $35,000 on a fully loaded Nissan Rogue, Honda CR-V, Toyota RAV4, just the gas-only counterpart, you could buy this car, which is significantly faster, way more refined. I mean, that instant torque where this car just puts you back on the seat, that's where the electric cars feel fast in real-world, everyday usage. And I think that's where a lot of mainstream consumers are going to find this thing, very appealing. It's the electric SUV for the millions. That's what VW calls it. Remember, this is the people's car company, and that's the reason why the ID.4 is the most important vehicle launch since the new Beetle. Now, I do want to point out, because it's an electric car, let's talk about the range really quick. When I started this drive, it had a full charge. I charged it overnight. It took around 7 hours to fully charge it from empty to full. It showed 211 miles on a full charge, which is less than the 250 that it's supposed to be showing. A little bit there, but the traction control is cutting all the power, and I can't seem to find the button to turn off the traction control. It's almost like VW doesn't want me to, but it's probably buried somewhere in this infotainment system, which I talked about earlier is a little bit of a mess in terms of the user interface. It could be a little bit simplified, but I imagine VW will make some over-the-air updates in the coming years or coming months and simplify things once this car gets into owners' hands. But in terms of handling prowess, the ID.4 has, a skateboard platform. This is the MEB platform, and it feels like the center of gravity is very low. The car has very little to no body lean. It weighs pretty heavy, 4,600 pounds, but you chuck it into a corner here, the steering provides a good amount of feedback. The car feels like it's sporty. It feels like it can easily handle more power. It also has a somewhat of a comfort tune to it. VW, again, wanted this car to be comfortable. They wanted it to be quiet. It is definitely quiet and comfortable. The seats in this vehicle, these are the leatherette seats, the upgraded ones. They are heated, just heated wheel, no cooling function. But I do have the massage feature. So right now I'm kind of getting that lumbar massage, which does an okay job. It's not, a massage that you're gonna find in an Audi product, but it's, a very rare feature in this class. I don't believe any other vehicles in this segment offer a lumbar massage, so it's nice that VW did that for you. The driver assistance in this car comes standard, so VW calls it ID Drive or IQ Drive. It does have adaptive cruise control, lane keep assist, forward collision warning with automatic braking, pedestrian detection. On the highway, I noticed that the lane keep assist in this car feels like a step behind some competitors. Where others will actively steer you in the lane, I found the system to be more of a ping pong effect. It just kind of pushed me back and forth between the lane whenever I got close to the actual lane markers. So I found that to be disappointing. Hopefully VW will fix that, with improved driver assistance tech with an over-the-air update. But at that point right there, you really get a sense that the ID.4 wants to have fun. This is a car that seriously feels completely different than any other VW I've driven, and that's because it's all electric, because it's so quiet. Visibility in the ID.4 is also pretty good, although these pillars are a little bit thick. The view out of the back is good because this doesn't have that sloping roof line. You do have blind spot monitoring, big side mirrors, which is nice. The driving position is also quite comfortable. The seats are more comfortable than the Chevrolet Bolt that I last drive, the new one I'm talking about, but not quite as soft and cushy as the Ford Mach-E and a Tesla Model Y. I found those seats to be a little bit more comfortable. But I mean, overall, there's plenty to like about this car. And in terms of efficiency, it easily will do, almost 3 miles per kilowatt, which is, got a little sideways there, a little bit better than the Mach-E that I drove. Definitely feels sluggish compared to other EVs, but I mean, this is way faster than a Tiguan. So if you guys are considering a Tiguan, check this thing out, because I think this is way better than the Tiguan. It offers pretty identical space on the inside, although maybe not quite as much ground clearance. Now, I do want to talk about one more thing with an electric car, is the regen braking. When you have it in its regular drive for the transmission, it's a 1-speed reduction gear. It has very little to no regen braking. And VW says they did that because they wanted this car to not alienate somebody who's coming from a gas car with the strong regen braking you get from a Tesla or from the Ford Mach-E or even the Chevrolet Bolt, the new one. Put it into the B mode here, which you twist to the you twist this little shifter forward, and you notice it is decent amount of regen. But unlike, again, a Tesla, the Model Y, the Mach-E, or the Bolt EUV, I'm noticing that it doesn't quite provide enough strong regen braking to bring the car to a stop. Now so I would like to see VW offer me an option to give me maximum regen, because that's what EV customers want. I mean, I understand they don't want to alienate, their core customers who are used to gas cars. But that's the whole point of an electric car. You want it to be completely different in terms of the driving experience. I mean, I already have the different experience where I get in, put my foot on the brake, and the car's on. Although there isn't a little on button here. There is an on start-stop button here if you guys want to use it as a backup. But it just seems like a missed opportunity for VW. I also think they should have launched this car with the dual motor available from the start, because the rear drive version, while it does make it for, you can do those little tail out slides if you could figure out a way to turn off the traction control. I think the whole point of an SUV like this is the all-wheel drive, but you're gonna have to wait until the summertime to get the all-wheel drive function. But overall, I'm pretty impressed with the ID.4. It has, the entire package to show you that VW is serious. They designed this car from the ground up to be an all-electric car. I find that there are a couple of things that are missing on this vehicle that could keep it from being, a true, all-out easy choice for me. But there are so many new competitors coming later this year.
I'll try another acceleration here. Wheel turn. Yeah, there's no kind of drama. It just sticks and goes. So they do a very good job of putting the power to the ground. I mean, I'm not wanting this thing to be sliding around or anything. But I'm just kind of shocked that it's rear-wheel drive, 229 pound-feet of torque that are instant, and there is no kind of wiggle or anything for that back end. So that's good if you're someone who's not on the sporty side. This will feel nice and confident and safe as long as you're not encountering any kind of rain or snow. If you're someone who encounters bad weather, I would wait for the all-wheel drive version for sure. The all-wheel drive version also gives you an extra 100 horsepower, so it's going to be around 300 horsepower compared to the 200 horsepower here in this. So that should address the power complaints. If there's some people that want more power, that'll give you that. And you'll also have that all-wheel drive sure-footedness that most people buying a crossover want. Most crossover buyers do not want rear-wheel drive. So we'll see if that hinders the sales of this rear-wheel drive version. But at least they do have an all-wheel drive version coming out. I'm sure that'll be a lot more popular. But I think even in the normal drive mode, though, it is nice how it kind of will inch up and stuff. So again, it's a very normal kind of driving experience aside from that immediate power. The other thing, though, to mention here about this electric vehicle, it's very important if you're buying an electric vehicle, is the battery size, the recharge times, range, all that kind of stuff. So really, unless you don't care about the health of your battery, this is the same thing that Tesla does, right? Where Tesla will give you this huge mileage claim, but then tell you, oh, but actually, you shouldn't let it get below 10%, and you also shouldn't let it get below 80 or 90%, or above 80 or 90%. And so that gives you a realistic range that's a lot less. But I just wanted to point that out, that if you are trying to keep the battery in good health, it'll be realistically, in the low 200s, not 250. But as far as recharge times, though, that is pretty good too. If you do a DC fast charger, it'll do from 5% to 80% in just 38 minutes. So if you are trying to do some type of road trip or something like that, you stop for a bite to eat or something like that, you can get right back to that 80% mark. Now, we'll slow down a good bit beyond that. So that's another case where, the whole usable range is great, but for you to actually max out the full 250, you can do that at your house before you leave for a trip. But when you're on the road, you're not going to want to go beyond that 80%. So again, that realistic range is going to be maybe closer to 200 instead of 250. If you are just zapping it from 5% to 80% on road trips, you're going to have a less effective range there than that top 250 number. It's also worth noting about that range too that Car and Driver did a cold weather highway test, and they only managed to get 190 miles of even just cruising on the highway, again, in cold weather. So that is another thing, is in cold weather, this doesn't have any kind of heat pump or anything, so this is going to drop with the range in cold weather, and also just any kind of other climate. If you're in a climate where you have to blast the AC all the time, that's going to lower your results and stuff. So that 250 is really an ideal number. That is another thing to keep in mind about this. So there's lots of caveats, as far as that actual range goes. So I wouldn't bank on anything much beyond 200. if you're really trying to play it safe and plan out a road trip or something like that. But you know, I mean, a lot of those challenges are challenges that all electric cars face for the most part. And so, you know, it is nice how whenever you do get one of these ID.4s, you get 3 years of free charging on the Electrify America network. And so that's the network that Volkswagen has been funding heavily. And so with that, you know, you're going to have a pretty good amount of charging locations and, you know, a good amount of places to charge up. And it's pretty much on par with Tesla's supercharging network. Now, is it as reliable as Tesla's supercharging network, or, you know, in the right kind of spots like Tesla's supercharging network often is? You know, from the experiences I've seen so far, it doesn't seem to always be quite as reliable, but that is something that will continue to improve. They're continuing to roll out new chargers all the time, and so here in the middle of 2021, you know, that's something that certainly could use improvement, but it's not bad. But I think Tesla still is probably the king as far as charging goes when you're on a road trip. All right, so now we're out on the highway here in the ID.4, and one thing that I forgot to mention earlier is the driver assistance tech. So this has all the usual driver assistance tech, that has lane keeping assist and the automatic emergency braking, adaptive cruise control, all those types of things here in this, and it's great to have all that stuff. But one thing is, it won't let you turn any of that stuff off while you're driving. You have to be stopped in order to turn that stuff off, and it automatically defaults to putting on the lane keeping assist system every single time you get in this car to start driving. I've turned it off, and when I come back to the car, it's back on again. So every single time you get in this car, you're gonna have to remember to go in and turn that off if you don't like this thing trying to steer for you constantly. And you know, it doesn't intervene too much, but if you are getting a little bit close to the shoulder, you will feel it try to nudge the steering wheel. Thankfully, it doesn't beep at you or anything. It's just the nudging of the wheel, but it's still kind of annoying that it does that. And also, it's kind of hit or miss, because like sometimes it won't let me actually go over the lines before it starts alerting me. But anyway, just one thing to note there, I do really wish that you could at least have that stuff turned off permanently. But so I have all that stuff turned on. I'm going to turn the travel assist on, which is where it does more active steering assist for you and actually tries to like center you in the lane, not just keep you from leaving the lane. So I have that on. We're cruising here in some rush hour traffic, but everyone seems to be doing about the speed limit here. And you know, on this